So it has been over 2 years since I've been living in Dubai full time, and a lot has happened in that time. A lot of things have changed, and I also gained a lot of insights about this city and about the UAE in general since being here. And I made a video just like this one over a year ago when the whole experience was still a lot more fresh. So I wanted to give an updated version of it because a lot of you guys seem to have liked that video. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, just to give you a little bit of background story on why I moved here in the first place. I was basically 20 years old. I was running a couple decently successful online businesses, like a creative agency and a YouTube channel as well, that was bringing in revenue from different sources like affiliate marketing, brand deals, and some info products as well. And the main reason why I decided to move here over 2 years ago was because I wanted to grow my business. I wanted to expand it. I wanted to pay less money to taxes compared to Europe, and just in general, grow as a person and live an interesting life. And I would say that really happened. I grew a ton as a person. I learned a lot. My network expanded by tenfold. My net worth also was able to multiply since the time I've been here, partially thanks to all of the taxes that I was able to save by having my company set up here and by having my personal residency here. And overall, it's been a very eventful last 2 years, and I really don't regret anything. And I don't really see myself moving away from here anytime in the near future. So overall, I can easily say that Dubai was a good decision for me. But you have to keep in mind, right, that I came here as someone who was making already good money, and I was making that money online, so I could do it from pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the process of how I actually moved here before we would go into my pros and cons to Dubai, because you might be interested in this as well. So basically, there is multiple ways that you can come to the UAE and become a resident, but the way I did it was I set up a free zone company, and then through that free zone company, I sponsored myself a visa, and that basically allows you to do everything that you would need, like renting an apartment, opening bank accounts, and whatever you want, buy a car, whatever it is that you want to do. So overall, this process can be very, very stressful, and there's a lot of ways where you can lose money with it. And I actually ended up setting up even a company I couldn't end up using at the end because it wasn't structured properly. I had weeks and weeks of delay, so I had a lot of difficulty with this, but it really doesn't have to be this way. So because of this, I actually ended up starting to help some other entrepreneurs as well with this, who've been messaging me about how they can also move. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out in the description down below. But regardless, that's the route I took. Now you can also come here on employment, right? Or you can even get an investor visa if you invest a certain amount of money into, for example, real estate. But honestly, there are a lot of different routes to get a residency visa here. The route that I took was setting up a company and sponsoring myself and my girlfriend through that. Now let's talk about the actual pros first. What I really like about Dubai, some of these things I already liked over a year ago, and some of these things I only got to kind of experience and really feel in the last year or so. So the first one is safety. Now this was a big thing even a year ago, but I feel like now this is more relevant than ever. I feel like over the last 2 years, Europe, Canada, and a lot of these Western countries have really declined in safety, and there has been a lot more division, a lot more frustration in all of these places, and here you don't really experience that. So that's probably still one of the biggest pros about the UAE. Sure, I'm not saying there is absolutely zero crime or there is absolutely zero things that are happening here, but if you compare it to Europe or a lot of the Western European countries, it's still way better and way safer. Overall, you cannot really deny that. It's just statistics. Then the second thing I really like is the lack of politics in everyday life. In Europe, for example, in my home country, with the elections coming up next year, people are only talking about politics. It's everywhere, and it's causing division left and right between people. And I think it's a horrible thing, right? At the end of the day, we should just be living our lives, focusing on our family, focusing on our work, and, improving as a person. But what people are doing instead is just fighting each other over politics. Here, it's not really a thing. Because we don't have, elections here in the UAE, because of that, politics are not really topic of discussion. It's not something that people really go up against each other about. And that I really like. It's kind of like living in a bubble where you are just not thinking about these things on a day-to-day basis, and you're not getting into heated conversations with your family members about it or your friends about it. Then the third thing I really like is the convenience and services. Now, here in Dubai, you have so many conveniences available to you, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, this is big, right? Like, you can get food delivered to you, you can get cleaning delivered to you, you can even get fuel delivered to your car with an app at the same price as the gas station. So there's so many of these little conveniences that can take away the day-to-day tasks which would otherwise drain your energy, so you can really focus on your work, on your fitness, or whatever is really important to you. I only notice these conveniences now when I actually fly back home, and then I realize how much I'm missing some of these. The next pro is environmental exposure to success. Now, what I mean by this is if you live in Dubai for an extended period of time, or in the UAE, right, then you see so much material success around you. You see so many nice cars, so many nice houses, that you kind of stop putting these things on a pedestal and seeing them as unfathomable or unreachable, because it's all around you, right? And this can create a mindset of like, well, if all of these thousands of people could do it, why couldn't I do it? Whereas maybe in your hometown, or at least I'm going to talk for me, in my hometown, I never saw, supercars. I never saw super nice houses. And because of that reason, I was always putting these things on a pedestal. And I was thinking it's unreachable, or that I need to be a special kind of person to be able to attain these things. Whereas here, it's so normalized around you that you realize that all of these thousands of other people are not necessarily smarter than you or anything like that. If they could do it, you could also do it as well. Then the next pro is obviously the low tax. You've probably heard about it. You have 0% income tax, 0% dividend tax, and even corporate tax is only 9% on your profits over $100,000. And until the end of next year, if you're making less than $800,000, for example, with your company, you can most likely qualify for small business relief and reduce that to 0. But either ways, the taxes are super, super low compared to any other Western country. And what that means is you are actually motivated to push for more in your business, because you know that you're going to keep the majority of that money. Whereas what I was feeling in Europe is that the more money I made, the more money I had to pay in taxes. And I was not really motivated to push that hard, because I knew that I was working basically 5 to 6 months of the year for the government and paying all of that money to them, instead of keeping it, investing it, and using it, to benefit me and my family as well. Then the next pro is overall a positive mindset in people. I feel like obviously this is not going to be everyone, but I feel like overall people have a much more positive attitude towards life here. Everybody's focused on improving themselves, on becoming a better version of themselves. And that is not really the case, generally speaking, in, for example, most European countries, or at least what I have experienced personally. And again, I'm not saying that everybody here is super positive or everybody has a good mindset, but if we look at the total sum of people, I would say the overall attitude is a lot better here than in most other countries in the world. Then another pro, which I wasn't really expecting, is cheaper luxury. If you are into any sort of luxurious stuff like cars, watches, or even nice apartments, anything like that, it's going to be quite a lot cheaper compared to Europe, or I would say probably Canada as well, because of the low tax environment. So the same car I can buy here for $100,000 would probably cost around $140,000 in my home country. So you get to keep more of the money that you make because of the low taxes, and the things you would buy with it are also oftentimes cheaper than elsewhere. So it's a pretty funny thing, but that's something I've noticed as well over the last year or so. Then another pro is now the sunshine. In Europe right now, the weather is pretty horrible. It's like, -5 to +5 Celsius. It's very gloomy, rainy, snowy. Here, the weather is pretty much always sunny, and that's something that I'm not taking for granted, because I know how depressing the winters can be when the sun already sets at 4 p.m. and sometimes you don't even see the sun for a couple of weeks straight. Here, the sun is pretty much always up, it's pretty much always shining, which I do feel like in the morning, it gives me that little extra boost in my mood when I'm driving to the gym, for example. Then another pro is the cleanliness of most of the central areas. If you're going to any of the major like tourist attractions or just in general like a nice area, the streets are going to be clean, there is not going to be like any trash there, and just in general very well maintained. There are pretty much unlimited amounts of really good restaurants that you could go to, so if you love food, that's something you are also going to love about Dubai, that you could go to a new restaurant, experience something new every single day for years straight, and you still wouldn't run out of really good quality restaurants. So that's something I absolutely love as well. Obviously, you do tend to find your favorite spots and go back to them over time, but there is no shortage of options when it comes to food, that's for sure. Then another big pro in my opinion is the amount of selection that you have for groceries and products in general. Now, if you're coming from a first world country, from a major city, it's probably not going to be like a huge change for you, but for me, coming from Hungary, I was shocked at first to see how many different like fruits and vegetables you can buy in the grocery stores, and also just in general how available all of the different products are in the stores. This was definitely not the case in Hungary, but again, for you it might be different if you're already kind of used to this. There's also lots of activities that you can do with your friends. You can go to a nice cigar lounge, you can go on a boat, you can go wake surfing, you can go to the desert and do some, barbecuing there. Whatever it is that you want, like there is so many different kinds of entertainment options. That's something that I genuinely really enjoy, that, it's not like there is nothing to do in the city. There's pretty much like something new opening every single week, whether it's an escape room, whether it's some, like cinema. There's always some form of entertainment that is new, that comes up, pops up, and you can go and try it out if you are into that kind of stuff. Then another huge benefit that I've experienced personally is the network and the caliber of people that you can actually meet here and become friends with, right? Now, it is very important that you have to be in the right circles if you want to meet genuine and actually like super successful and impressive people, but it is definitely possible, right? So I know there's the stereotype of the Dubai bro who just drives a G-Wagon and runs crypto scams. There's definitely a lot of those out here, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there's also a ton of genuine people who have built super impressive companies, who have super impressive skill sets, and who you can learn a lot from. And I've been fortunate enough to get into some of these circles and meet some, again, people who I've learned a ton from. So I think that if you are especially an entrepreneur, this can really like skyrocket your growth, because at the end of the day, the information you have access to is going to dictate your success to some extent. And here there is no lack of information that you can get from the right people. Then the airport is another pro. You have direct flights pretty much everywhere, and you can fly with a lot of different airlines, some of the highest quality ones. So if you are into traveling, it's also like a very well located place where you can go to Asia or you can go to Europe in just a couple of hours with direct flights, which is definitely a big convenience. Then another thing that I personally really like is how many new buildings there are here. Obviously, because the city is very new, there is a lot of new buildings, but just in general, you can find so many apartments at different price ranges with amazing views like this one that I'm in as well. And so if you're into that stuff, if you are into high rises or just in general like modern architecture, well then here you will have so many different options. It's insane. I know not everybody likes modern architecture or modern buildings, but if you like it, well then you will definitely have like so many options to choose from. Another pro about Dubai is that it can really be as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. Now, I know that a lot of people think that you need to spend $20,000 or $30,000 a month just to live a life in Dubai, but in my opinion, it's actually not the case. If you are a single guy, you can live a really good quality of life for 4 to 5K a month even. And if you want to like really ball out, maybe 10K a month, it's like you're going to be living pretty much, I'm not going to say like a king, like you're not going to go to the club and pop bottles and all of that stuff, but you are going to live a very high quality of life if you're single from 5 to 10K a month. But even if you are, maybe a couple, then for 10K a month to 15K a month, you can live like an amazing life, an amazing apartment, highest quality of foods, going to restaurants multiple times a month, like everything you want. And I know that that can sound very expensive, but if you compare it to central London or New York or any of the major cities, it's going to be probably double that there. And again, here you can even live a life off of $1,000 a month or 2,000. So you can really make it as expensive or as cheap as you want. You could spend $1,000 or you could spend $100,000 easily here. It really kind of can cater to all sort of budgets and all sort of needs, right? So you really need to decide what are you looking for, what kind of lifestyle you want to live, and you can probably find that here. And last but not least, I would want to add that I don't think Dubai is as strict as a lot of the propaganda would make you believe. Sure, you have to follow the rules here, but most of the rules are, in my opinion, very reasonable. And as a normal human being, I don't think you are going to feel restricted by any means. Like, I feel just as free here as I would feel in my home country. So as long as you are living like an actual normal citizen, you are not going to get into trouble, and it's not nearly, again, as strict as most people would believe who have never actually lived here. But now let's talk about some cons, because I don't want people to feel like it's all just sunshine and rainbows, because it's really not. Just like how any other country or city has its drawbacks, so does Dubai. So one of the things I would say is it's super competitive, right? And it's a brutal work environment. It's endless competition here. If you are one of the best in what you're doing, then you will be able to get compensated for that and make a lot of money and become super successful. But if you're not, you're going to be replaced. And also some of the sectors here are not paid really well, like construction, or if you are a taxi driver, like you are not going to be making Western wages here if you are working one of those jobs. But if you are a doctor, an engineer, a CEO, or something where it requires, super high qualifications, you can make a lot of money with that, and also it's tax-free salary. So what I would say is, if you are a very competitive person, if you're maybe an entrepreneur, I think it's a great environment for you, but you want to expect the competition here to be very fierce, and that people are working here a lot and they're working very hard. So it's not really going to be one of those places where you can just coast and live a super cozy and comfortable life. I think you should only come here if you really want to push for a period of your life and you really want to compete. Another con is, I heard from other people, I've never dated here, I came here in a long-term relationship, but I've heard from some other people that dating here is really difficult. A lot of the women here are, not really looking for anything like super serious or a deep relationship, and the same thing for a lot of the guys as well. So it might not be the most ideal place if you are trying to meet your wife or husband. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just probably going to be a bit difficult. Another thing here when it comes to kind of human relationships is there are a lot of surface level people here, or a lot of people who are trying to look bigger than they are. You can find genuine relationships and you find genuine like friends and friendships. It's possible to build those here, but just expect it to be maybe a tiny bit more difficult than in some of the other countries. Then another big con to Dubai, and this is something that is just the reality, is that July, August, and September are pretty brutal when it comes to the weather. It's super hot outside, it's pretty like humid, and it's kind of hard to breathe. It feels a little bit like you are walking outside into the sauna. So what I would say is Dubai is the best if you can work remotely and you can just leave for 4 months in the summer months, because then you can experience just the good parts of the year instead of those very harsh conditions. There are upsides to the summer as well, like there is way less traffic and way less people, but at the same time, if you're not very used to that level of heat, then you are going to find it pretty difficult to stay here in those months, or you're just going to be stuck inside all day long. Another con is the air pollution. Again, the air pollution is pretty bad generally in Dubai, and also the water quality is not the best. This is coming from me who lived in Europe, right? Europe has some amazing air quality. So if you're coming from another city or country where the air pollution is also pretty bad, you might not really notice it. But if you're coming from a country that has a lot of forests and just amazing climate, then you will notice that the air quality here on some days is significantly worse and is not the healthiest, I have to say. So it is just something that is not being talked about a lot, but it is unfortunately the reality. They are working on trying to improve it artificially, but you have to expect that probably like 20% or 15% of the time, the air will be pretty bad. And another thing is the noise pollution and construction. Because Dubai is growing so rapidly and because so many people are moving here, there are so many constructions, you can expect pretty much almost any area to be a bit noisy when you go on your balcony, and it is just a reality, right? There is so much traffic, so many constructions happening, that if you want just peace and quiet, you can either choose one of the, you know, like more outer areas or gated communities, or you just have to accept the fact that if you go outside, it will be pretty noisy a lot of the time. And last but not least, the last con I'm going to mention here, and again, this is a con depending on where you're coming from. For me, coming from Europe, where healthcare is free and also university is oftentimes free, it's not the case here, right? So paid healthcare and also pretty expensive schools for kids is a downside for me, because I'm kind of used to having those things available for quote unquote free in my home country. But if you're coming from another country where you also have to pay for those things, then it's not really a con. And at the end of the day, obviously the free healthcare or free universities in Europe are coming from your tax dollars. So overall, I would still say that just because you have to pay for health insurance here or you have to pay for school, you are still keeping a lot more money in your pocket overall, because you are not paying super high taxes on the money that you make. So those were just some of the pros and cons after living here for over 2 years. I do have to say, if I put everything on kind of like a scale, it's definitely still in the favor of Dubai. I would say the biggest measurement for me to whether I should stay here or not for any longer is how I feel when I come back from a couple weeks trip to Dubai, right? And every time I land at the airport, I'm grateful to be coming back here, and I really feel at home. I really feel safe here. And so as long as I keep feeling that way and I'm not really wanting to be elsewhere, I will end up staying here for the most part. But yeah, I think it's one of the best places to be if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to push hard in your career. But even if you have a family and you have the financial means to be here, it's also a nice place to spend, you know, half of the year or 8 months of the year. And it's a very safe environment, a lot of conveniences. You can live pretty amazing lifestyle here, in my opinion. So I hope you enjoy this video. If you are also thinking about opening a company here in Dubai, or you want accounting with it, check out the first link in the description down below to book a free meeting with me to see how I could help you to make this transition. And otherwise, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I don't want this video to come off as just me like pushing Dubai to everyone. I don't think it's the right place for everybody. But if you are the type of person who these pros that I mentioned are important for, and the cons that I mentioned are not a deal breaker, then I do think it's worth a shot. It's worth coming out here for at least a year, seeing how you like it, and then deciding based off of that. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.